Hey there, welcome back to Watch Me with Emily Galindo. I'm your host. We are here discussing all things about life, whether you're stuck, don't like it, want it to get better, want to transform, whatever those things may be, but we are proving to ourselves and to others that you can just say, you know what, watch me, I'm going to do this. Now, as I was just getting ready to start this show, I was thinking about this intro and going, I think that the challenge is that for me in my body, that response of watch me, I can do this is probably not a common response for a lot of people. We have things standing in our way. Typically it's our own voices are in our head telling us that we aren't good enough, we don't deserve this, we're going to be like this forever. And I'm here to tell you that voice, one, isn't you, and two, it was put there probably by some sort of traumatic response or traumatic experience that you've had in life. And I want to help you get to a place where you can feel empowered enough to say, watch me, I'm going to do this. And the person that's going to help you today is an amazing guest that I'm super honored to have. Jenn Marie Cook is a specialist in integrated subconscious programming. So kind of a mouthful, but honestly, we've got to reprogram what we tell ourselves every day. And a lot of us don't have resources or tools or even know where to start with that or even know that that's happening. And Jenn Marie is a fabulous speaker. She's a leader. She's a thought leader in leadership development, in women and personal empowerment. And I just can't wait to hear everything that she has to teach us today. So welcome, Jenn Marie.
Well, thank you for having me, Emily.
I'm super excited. I can't wait. I want to jump right in and ask you the biggest question that I want everybody to hear, which is if you could speak to every person in the world and tell them one message, what would you tell them? What do you want them to know?
You know, faith and fear are both belief in the unknown. And we have the power to move forward through that voice in your head that, like Emily was just referring to. And when we allow those traumas that are in the past, they can hijack our future. But there are ways to cope, deal, and actually move through and allow grief, guilt, and shame to move into joy, peace, prosperity, abundance. And there's hope. There is hope.
There is hope. That's the message. Of course there's hope. What do we say to the people? Like, give me an example for just a regular person who's living their life. Give an example of how trauma can show up in a very low stakes kind of situation that is something that they're doing every day that might be due to their trauma that they don't even know that they're doing.
It could be as simple as an email pops up and you're like, oh, or the phone rings and you want to decline the call. A song can pop on and you feel that feeling in your body and a shaking starts because the body stores emotions and memories that sometimes we're not even able to consciously recognize.
Yeah, actually, the phone call thing, I was just talking to, I was at my girlfriend's house over the weekend, and we were talking about this. She was raised by, a narcissistic mother, and long story short, but she gets every single time her phone rings, she thinks that something bad has happened because of all of this stuff, experiences in her life that I guess every time her mom called, there was something bad that happened or whatever. And that is her trigger, is the phone ringing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, every day you have to deal with that.
Yeah, it can be lonely. It can be isolating. People can feel that they're going crazy, but there's ways to detach and overcome just by recognizing. So, I mean, that's a step that she can even recognize.
Yeah.
This is a trigger for me.
So first step is recognition. Do you think that we spend enough time paying attention to our bodies and the responses we go through the day?
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Not with technology right at our fingertips. There's so many distractions. Being still is actually very scary for most people. Like, just to sit and stare in a mirror for 2 minutes, most people couldn't do it.
Interesting. I don't know. I'm trying to think if I could do that. But at my lunch that I was at yesterday, right? We were having an amazing conversation. She gets up, she goes to the bathroom. I don't even think she made it around the corner. And I was like, let me grab my phone and check in on whatever, like just to sit at the table was not an option for me, I guess, or it wasn't my natural response, I suppose.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, tell me a little bit about Jenn Marie and how we ended up being a specialist in integrated subconscious programming.
very long story short, I sold a past business in 2018. And in 2019, I got very sick. I was bedridden, on home health, on a liquid diet. And I was grasping at straws, lived a very, very holistic lifestyle, and was taking over 25 pills a day to even function. And then in 2020, I say the world was falling apart and mine fell into place. I found one modality that worked in emotional detachment. And within 6 weeks of diving into this, I was off 25 pills a day. I started kickboxing and I had my daughter. I got pregnant with my daughter, had her, like a year and a half later. And it was by detaching the emotional responses and the programming that was in my head. And at that time, I was journaling how amazing I was and all these things that I was being told to do by this, very self-absorbed society that there is out there. But those things are amazing. I preach knowing your worth, but if you don't believe them, it can send you down a worse path, because you're sitting here going, I am beautiful, I am worthy, I am loved. And I'm like, meh, meh. Nope, I would feel it in my body, but I'm like, I can just write it more and it'll come true. But once I was able to detach those emotional responses and really step into believing that and making it my core beliefs, my life completely changed. And so then over the next 2-3 years, I dug hard into the power of the brain, our body, how it stores and how to release it. And ISP was born. And so it completely changed my life. I've seen it change hundreds of lives. And there's just so much power in what happens between our ears.
Okay, and what is ISP?
ISP, integrated subconscious programming. So in short, is detaching emotional responses from our programs. Our programs are the stories that we run through our computer, whether it's, my name's Jenn, I'm 5'10", the wall is blue, the R is red. Or it could be, if my daughter was in here and she took a red marker and colored all over the walls, and I was like, oh, Meryl, I need you to sit. Let me take this. I'm going to clean it up. Her head could then program the stories. Mommy doesn't love me when I color. The color red's not safe. I'm not allowed to be creative. And so those programs are now stored in her subconscious to protect her from having that experience again. And so our emotional responses then attached to our programming as well. And so an emotional response example, when I was pregnant with my son, I was driving to the doctor. I got in a car accident. And in that moment, I was scared. I had scarcity. I was fearful. And just even looking at the Honda, those emotions attached. So every time I got behind the wheel of the car, subconsciously, those chemicals would run through my body, and that's how medication works, essential oils. It's stopping the blockage of those chemical reactions in your body. Guilt is a very acidic emotion. It is known to be a cause of cancer properties. And so by detaching our emotional responses, we release those chemicals running through our body, and we allow ourselves to feel the good oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin releases to where our body is flowing naturally. And that ultimately, in a nutshell, is what ISP does. And the other part of it is the positive reprogramming. So bringing in the new core beliefs that we want to believe. I am worthy. I am loved. Success doesn't have to be hard. It can be easy. We can do good things. We're here for a purpose. And yeah.
And what is the treatment plan look like? Like, what is, because I think that part of some of the not issues, but some confusion around any type of therapy or therapeutic is you got to do the hard work. That's what they always say. You got to do the work. I don't think anybody actually freaking knows what the work is, by the way, but I'm going through my own therapies, and it doesn't feel like work to me. It just feels like I got to answer some questions and look inward. But when we talk about doing the work, what is the work for ISP?
So ISP, it is simple. It is a therapy alternative.
Okay.
And so as a practitioner, we can have a conversation and I can get the programming, and I use muscle testing to lead me to a path on what emotions are attached to the programs. Because of my training and my work and practitioners I work with, it's not like traditional talk therapy. We don't have to go into memories like other modalities. Now, we can, and I need to make sure time is allotted during those sessions for possibly deeper dives, because when you open up the subconscious, you've also got to make sure before I send you back in the world, if you were a client, that we're wrapped back up to be able to function and we're not triggered when we leave the office. So it has been equated to similar to like a hypnotherapy session. It's also been called brain entrainment. When I am doing the positive reprogramming part of the session, it is anything from a breath work to a meditation, binaural beats and frequencies at the end. So people leave and they're like, oh, I'm so relaxed. I feel like I'm floating about 95% of the time. And so it's mainly just conversation, and then it is just breathing and exhaling while I talk.
Okay. And what would I be experiencing? Like, what does life have to get? I'm always trying to figure out, does life have to be traumatizing enough for me to go, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I find some of these resources, right? We talked about plant medicine last week, and or this option. Does it have to get that bad, or can people just go, this isn't working for me anymore, whatever this is, and doesn't have to get to the trauma side of it.
It doesn't even ever have to get to this isn't working for me. What is beautiful with how we are energetic beings. Emotions are energy in motion. And so some of my favorite clients.
I love that. Say that again.
We are energetic beings.
Right.
And emotions is energy in motion.
Energy in motion.
Emotions.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And so what is so fun for me, yes, the trauma, the healing. I mean, when people are like, this happened to me, I'm like, yes, we're going to be able to move through this. It's going to be phenomenal. But we are visual creatures. If I were to be able to say pink elephant.
I can see a pink elephant.
Purple Eiffel Tower. You see it. We were born into this world wanting to be loved and fed and held as a baby. And then we were programmed with the red R, the sparkly pink jacket,
right?
Whatever that looks like. And so if we can say, okay, I'm going to start with a blank slate. What do I want in my life? What do I want in my business? What do I want my relationships to look like? And if we're able to start writing down those things, picturing it in our head, and then more importantly, feeling how it would feel after that is a reality. I'm trying to close up the answer to your question, but that is ultimately my goal for my clients. Yes, it's releasing the limiting beliefs. It's releasing the shit show that's going on in your head from the trauma, but it's what do you want, and what is your belief that is putting that block up from you actually having the dream life that you want to design for yourself.
Which you can choose, as we talked earlier. We can choose that at any moment.
We can choose it at any moment, and we can choose to let go of what is hindering us. But that comes with recognition and self-awareness.
This has been a theme. Self-awareness and reflection, it seems to be the only thing that is required in order to change your life.
Yes.
That's every guest I've ever brought on. That's what they say. You have to look here at this. Like, I chose this. I'm here for, like, I made these choices that put me in this very chair, right? Like, whether it be good, bad, or indifferent. But I don't know. Do you think that people are capable of taking on that kind of accountability of their own lives?
Well, what you're not changing, you're choosing. So if you're sitting here, you're dissatisfied with a piece of your life, if you're not proactively making your next best step to be better, you're choosing your reality. And that's a hard truth.
That is a hard truth. I just want people to sit with that for a minute because it's true. It's absolutely true. And given what you and I are both, go ahead. You have something?
I do. I also want to follow that up with, I do believe we are in charge of our reality to a degree. My faith in God is very, very strong, and I do believe we are refined to be able to grow into the people and our purpose. But I also want to say, when you are in a relationship, whether that is business, personal, intimate, you are in charge of yourself.
Yeah.
Other people have free will. So don't misunderstand when I'm like, you're choosing your reality. Other people have their free will and their choice as well. So you also have, that might have triggered people in another direction. So sit with, you are in charge of you.
Yes.
And how you react and respond, that's you.
Right. That is a hard thing, given a lot of, I mean, most people, right? Whether it be a boss, a parent, a mother of your child, a father of your child, like you can't control how they react or how they show up in the world, right? You can only control how you manage that. Mm-hmm. That's a hard thing, because how in a trauma world, like as you're growing, I'm growing, and we're trying to show up in the world as choosing the life that we want to live, but we still have to communicate, right? They're still my mom. They still are the father of my child. They still are my boss, and I have to go to work and earn a paycheck. How do we operate in the world with them?
Okay, 2 parts.
Yes.
Who are we designed to be? As women, we are designed to be cherished and loved in our relationships. Men are wired for respect. So we need to make sure we have this beautiful, amazing way to show up with empathy, to foster connections, and to build collaboration within our systems, whether that's networking, business, life, relationships. Men, they're the decision makers. They go in, they solve the problems, and they're that firm, safe presence. Mm-hmm. And there's a beautiful blend there. But what we also have to remember is the judgmental stories that come to our head. Katie Byron wrote a book called Loving What Is. And yesterday, and I'm not, no clue what your lunch was about, but if your friend gets up to go to the restroom and you're sitting there and you don't pick up your phone and you're like, oh, this happened, or this person sent me this text message, or why did they choose to do this? What Katie writes about is everybody is always showing up in the best way that they know how. And when we can give grace and love and not making stories about why someone didn't text us or why their email response was this way, there's freedom in that.
It's also very frightening that the way some people show up in the world, right? And I'm like, I can have grace, but I'm going to do it with you way over there.
Well, that's boundaries.
Okay.
And boundaries are very healthy. And so being able to recognize that and also know how to create those boundaries for yourself is super huge. And I have very close people in my life that they can show up for me in the way that they can, mm-hmm. but they cannot show up for me in an emotional capacity. And so it's not fair for me to ask them to show up for me emotionally,
right,
or with different time. And I've had to learn that, and I've also had to accept that and honor that from them instead of continuing to have expectations that are going to make me angry, frustrated, upset, disappointed in them.
And I think that a very common situation with what you're describing is like a parent-child relationship, right?
Yes.
When mom or dad doesn't show up like you, especially right now during the holidays, right? People mm-hmm. I'm seeing a lot of that. Like, oh, I've invited my mother to come over to see the kids, and it doesn't meet her schedule. And and you just constantly are giving them opportunities to show up for you the way that you want them to, and they continually disappoint you because you're just like, maybe this time she'll be different. And you're like, that's who she is. We got to start having different expectations, right?
Yep. And there's beauty in that. Again, it goes back to the self-awareness.
Yep.
But then recognizing, how are you wanting to be loved? What are your love languages? Because that can open up a door to be very liberating, to be like, man, I am a quality time person, or I am a physical touch person, but this person, you know what? They're acts of service, or they're gifts, they're giving. And so that's a simpler way, instead of having to do all the Katie Byron work, which can be very, very triggering, but to be like, how am I, especially as a woman, wanting to receive, because we're receiving beings and we amplify that. But then also, how can I give? So the mom that's not showing up, but what is she doing her best way possible, and how can I give to her? And once that opens and you stop having that expectation of disappointment, it's so powerful to be like, oh, she is showing up for the kids in this way, or me in a way that I just wasn't recognizing or receiving. Another powerful thing that we can do is gratitude. And I know gratitude, it's like, oh, say your thanks. We need to have a thankful heart. But really expressing gratitude to others and telling them what you are thankful for.
Yeah.
One of my practices I do every day is 2 texts of gratitude to people. And it's what I'm thankful for maybe something they've done, how they're showing up, recognizing what they are doing. And you can't feel fear and gratitude at the exact same moment. And so, one, it puts you in a better state. But then it also, imagine what it's doing to that person. I mean, if I sent after our coffee last week and we're like, Emily, you made my day.
Yeah.
My day went beautifully. You got me out of my, rushed, unintentional, path I was walking down, just going through the motions. And this amazing thing happened, and this amazing thing happened. Thank you for being such a light. I would only think that you'd be like, oh.
Yeah, you would feel, yeah. I've heard that every interaction, no matter what it is, there's some sort of energy exchange, right? Obviously. And it's either a positive one or a negative one. There are very few and far between neutral experiences, right? And so I think it's in the same vein as gratitude, but at the cashier at HEB, I look at their name tag, I use their name. Yes. I think it's the simplest thing that you can possibly do to show gratitude or an acknowledgement that you are a human being and that I see you and that you're not just the cashier at HEB, right? Thank you, Jen. I appreciate you. Have a great day. That is a positive energy exchange that it may have only been a blip on their day, but it can drastically change somebody's day.
It can. Back when I first became single, my mentor was like, okay, when you are ready to start dating again, I want you to go on every date and have the intention that both of you are going to walk away better people than when you had the date.
Oh. And
regardless of the chemistry, the connection, anything. And I really sat with that, especially as I was like, dating? Okay. But
no thanks.
That is my attitude now on any interaction.
Okay.
And if I feel myself somebody cut me off, I'm like, okay, what is going on in their day that they had to cut me off? Or I don't know what they're going through. Can I smile? I am going to leave this interaction feeling better than how I entered it. And every meeting, every doctor's appointment, that is my conscious intention. I'm going to leave every human interaction prayerfully that both myself and the other person feel better than when we started it.
I love that for you, because I love that you're wishing that for the other person. I think for me, where I'm at right now in my journey, it's just you can only control you kind of thing. Who do I want to be in the world? That's it. How do I want to show up? And I can do that. And if you choose to, because I don't know if not everybody's at the same place in their life, energetically, healing wise, all the things. And so while I like to believe that, I would love to believe that everybody's out here trying to be the best version of themselves, like I am and you are, and a lot of the people I surround myself with, I'm finding every time I creep outside of that tribe or creep outside into civilization, that's just not what's happening. Not every, I don't know. And that's the purpose of kind of the podcast, is to try to get people the mission, right? To raise that it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be miserable. You don't have to be hateful and lash out and be irrational and hurt people. Stop, man. We don't have to be this way.
No. And to validate your point with science.
Yes, please.
that energy emotion. Frequencies are a real thing. If we were on a frequency camera, our aura, and I'm not talking like hippy dippy woo woo, like this is real. It is measured at least 6 feet out, if not farther.
Okay.
And so what can also happen when you start to raise yourself, like authenticity is the highest level of vibration. And if you start moving up through the emotions, David Hawkins really nails this on the head in his book, Letting Go. What doesn't match you is going to fight you and then fall away. And you also have to keep that in mind. My smile might trigger somebody, but that's on them.
Yeah.
And me moving up, me healing, me like physically and emotionally becoming and growing might trigger people. And we might have that shake, and they might choose to continue to be in my life, and they might fall away just because it's not time. It's not that time anymore. That story, that chapter is closing, and that's okay as well.
Right. But from a scientific, like, just your vibrational frequency is repelling those individuals.
It is. And the healing can be scary. So Bob Proctor talks about, he calls this, oh my gosh, talk about this all the time. Anyways, I'll get back to that. But how he describes the terror barrier, it's called a terror barrier. And if a pilot is flying a plane and he wants to break the speed of sound, right before he breaks through the speed of sound, it feels like that plane is just going to fall apart. So he has the choice, am I going to push through or am I going to pull back? And in our healing journey, we're going to experience that as well. If I'm raising up and I'm in this level of gratitude, there's going to be those shaky points where it's like, oh, are you really feeling this way? Because again, our subconscious, our nervous system gets used to what is our normal. So if chaos, the trauma, the fear, the scarcity is our normal, hope, peace, joy, love could send us into states of anxiety. They could send us to where we're feeling like we're going backwards, but we're not. We have a choice to continue to move forward instead of going back into those old patterns.
And the reason you're saying that people don't is because they just get too scared, right?
They get too scared. And the healing journey, to go back to the trauma that you said before, and go back to that point, our healing journey is not necessarily to heal pain, trauma, surprise, the feeling of terror, anxiety. It's actually to allow ourselves to feel joy, happiness, safety, and security. Because if you think about it, when we were living in those states, we weren't experiencing these emotions.
Yeah, for sure.
And so it's actually opening up to that it is safe to feel these things. And again, trauma doesn't have to be sexual abuse. It doesn't have to be physical abuse. It doesn't have to be neglect. Trauma can be
consistently just not having your needs met.
Not having your needs met, or a job, thinking you have to be 7 to 7 at a job. I mean, a job can be traumatizing.
Sure.
By
absolutely.
how you're showing up or spinning your wheels and not having the support and love and getting your needs met because you are so deep in like what our culture says success is.
I was to the job thing, that mundane, I'm sure, there's a whole sector. I work with entrepreneurs and do a lot of that work, but there's a whole private sector of just clock in, clock out type employees that have, I'm assuming, probably no real fulfillment or purpose in life other than entering the data or, pushing the paper or doing the thing. And that right there, I think, would be extremely traumatizing over time. Like, to not ever feel like you're a part of anything. As human beings, we feel like we have to be, like, we, for our best interest, need to be connected and feel like we are contributing some way and have some sort of purpose. And so would you consider that mundane type of clock in, clock out life would you consider that trauma or traumatizing?
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the programming that can come from your worth is by checking a box. It's by clocking in and by clocking out. This is what you have to do to be successful. Why does this bucket A define your worth? And so it's ultimately going back to what brings you joy. Not saying go quit your job, not saying leave the 401k, but are you filling your cup elsewhere? Are you on the hunt for joy and getting your needs met in other places? Or is your worth defined by what you made on the test or what boxes you checked during the day?
Interesting. I think that's, absolutely true. Like, we have got to get, and I want to go back to your point about not being able to experience joy and happiness and love while also simultaneously experiencing the negative side of things. And I'm intrigued by, you said you don't have to heal those things in order to be able to start to see and feel joy, love, and the positive side of emotions. So you don't have to heal the...
Well, it's healing, but we're not healing the negative to let the negative totally go. It's letting it be and recognizing that it's safe to have a different reality.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense?
It does to me, but I've done a lot of work. So how do we help somebody who both can exist, is what you're saying, right? Like, it doesn't have to be as bad as like sexual assault or something like that can have happened, and also it doesn't have to control who you are for the rest of your life.
No, if we allow our past to define who we are, it hijacks your future.
Sure.
And so we all have hard. Everybody has hard. Whether, some people's hard does not look like the hard that you and I have experienced, let's say in the past 2 years.
Yeah, let's call it that.
But my childhood was not traumatic.
Yeah.
So why in the world did my body literally shut down? And it was because the stories were just looping through my head because I didn't believe in my own worth. I had the self-abuse behavior. And I had to recognize that within myself. And I wasn't allowing myself to dream, to experience joy. And joy and happiness are two different emotions, and that's a whole nother conversation. But I've just seen a quote recently, and again, David Hawkins' book Letting Go is absolutely amazing.
I'm gonna have to buy that one.
It's phenomenal. But I saw, don't let go, just let things be. And
I think that's powerful, because I think just the sheer letting go seems so forever, right?
Yes.
Like, it just seems like I'll never get to speak to that person again. I'll never get to feel that happiness with them again, like, or whatever it is. Like, I'll never be able to. It just feels like, and I don't like when people say closing the chapter. You're like, but there are parts of that chapter that I kind of like.
Well, and
shutting the book and letting it go feels like I can't ever do that ever, or touch it or play with it or do anything ever again.
It's part of your story. It's part of what has made you who you are. And so just letting it be lets go of allowing something to define you and just letting it. And I feel like it lets go of it releases the pressure of letting go.
Yeah. No, I'm here for this, because I'm like, I don't like this. I was just talking actually to my therapist the other day, and maybe you can help me with this, because you'll be the sixth person that I'm trying to figure out the vocabulary word. So the word surrender does not land well for me. It feels very disempowering. It feels very, just to me personally, it feels very like wartimey, right? Like, surrender, the white flag, like I've given up. And in the letting go, world of, some people have called it acceptance. Some people have called it, I don't know. I just am looking for something more empowering than just well, it is what it is. And so here we are. You know what I'm saying? Like that just feels so defeated. I've surrendered to it. It doesn't make me feel empowered. It just makes me feel like I gave up.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to be vulnerable for a second. You don't have to give a lot of context because we've had other conversation off camera. In what are you trying to surrender?
I guess in the context we were talking about was, so here's a great example. Like my mom talks to me about my sister and whatever's like, and just, it doesn't have to be talking about like her relationship and what's going on. And typically in my in my old life, I would have said, we would have had all these opinions and judgments and whatever. And I just am like, whatever, man, it's her life. And she calls it apoplectic. It's not that I don't give a shit. It's just, I literally have gotten to a place where I can only have so much energy in the world, in my body, and I'm using it to control literally me and my 2 kids. And this is my only focus for a little while. I don't know, like in terms of caring about what other people got going on. Like you want to do that, good for you. I'm kind of in the let them. I got it tattooed on my arm. Like I'm just like, whatever, man, go ahead. But they're like, oh, you've surrendered control. You've accepted who they are. And I'm like, no, you do you, boo, is kind of, but I'm looking for like an actual smart word for that. That's not you do you, and maybe it is just let them.
It's allowing others to make their choices and go through their lessons. And go back to, I don't normally, when I have conversations, reference the same 2 or 3 authors. But again, Katie Byron, Loving What Is. Mm-hmm. You are letting, that's what it is.
Okay.
You are, and you could pick even a positive word. I'm at peace. I'm in harmony. I'm at, you know what it is?
Yes.
You are in a place of contentment.
Oh, okay.
And you are in control of your contentment.
Okay. I like this.
And you are not putting your peace and you're not allowing others to come in and shake that.
Right. I like that contentment.
You're content with you. This is them and this is you.
Okay. I like that. I was thinking, you were kind of on the story, but I was thinking on the very early portions of this journey of mine is don't allow my life coach who I was working with at the time. She told me the story about getting clean and going through AA years ago, that when she went to the coffee shop to meet the lady to take her to her first AA meeting, she was just like, you know what, I've decided I'm not going to do this. And she and the lady was like, okay, and got up and like walked out. And she kind of was left going, that was weird, that was easy. And then 3 months later found herself back at that very AA meeting for the first time and walked up to her and said, when I came last time 3 months ago, why didn't you talk me out of it? Why didn't you stop me? I went out and did all this shit for the last 3 months and ruined, the rest of it. She's like, because I am not going to deny your right to suffer. If that's what you want to do, then who am I to get in the way of that?
When I work with clients, a coach, a leader, a facilitator should allow the individual to set their own vision and action.
Right.
Because if I tell you, Emily, you want more toned arms, you have to go do this, this, and this. But if you didn't come to me and say, I want more toned arms, who am I to tell you what to go do? You're not having the personal buy-in to do that.
Right.
Now, with that also being said, individuals have to hit a rock bottom. Are they miserable enough to want to move forward? Is the pain they're experiencing painful enough to make the change?
This has been one of the questions I've asked almost every guest that I have that comes on, that I just, does it have to get that bad? I know here I am standing in the way of people's right to suffer, but I'm trying to look at people and being like, it doesn't have to get that bad before you start to do something for your life. It doesn't, but I think the question is, from a human perspective, from the work that we do, does it have to get that bad?
I think it goes back to that bad is going to be each individual's perception of what that bad is. Mm-hmm. It could be almost ODing. It could be
getting arrested.
It could be, holy moly, I'm not sleeping at night. I'm not seeing my family. I know what I want. I'm going to make a career shift now. Mm-hmm. I'm going to push through the scary. But is this pain comfortable? And are they willing to do the work? And the thing is, like you and I talked about, the work is portrayed by the world to look scary. And ultimately, if I had to say anything, the work doesn't have to be scary. It's liberating.
Yeah.
But there's so much fear in the unknown. But again, back to that first line, faith and fear are both beliefs in an unknown.
Okay.
So it's an individual's pain point.
Yeah, just in understanding human nature, I think it does ultimately have to get, whatever your bad is, it does have to get bad. We are programmed, just as at a human primal level, to minimize pain and maximize pleasure. Like that's what we're here to do. I always just find it very interesting that so many people choose to just sit in the pain instead of doing anything about it, because the pain is, I understand it's comfortable and they're used to it and all of those types of things. And all of us who have been healing and on this journey look back and go, I promise you it's better on this side. Whatever. And I don't think the work is that hard. It just, is self-reflection that hard? I'm finding out that not everybody views the world the way I do. I know that sounds funny at the age I am, but is self-reflection that hard?
It is.
Is it?
I think it can be. I mean, I know there's many times I just spoke on this about being refined and getting put in the fire, and how when gold is refined, it's dipped in the fire, and back out, it's dipped in the fire, and all the impurities go away. And in the healing journey, sometimes I'm like, do I really want to go through more? Do I really want to rip off, like they say the donkey says in Shrek, like peel back the layers of the onion? I mean, there's always, healing is a never ending process.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no there.
There is no there. But I truly believe these individuals, they've let that worthiness wound grow the unworthy wound grow so big that there's not the hope. And you nailed something on the head. As much as I talk about like it's an inner working, we have to have our community.
Yeah.
And we have to have our safe people that show up without judgment. But we also have to know if they do judge, that's on them. We have to let go of that fear of judgment from our community and be vulnerable. And that
right there,
is where that vulnerability is so many times seen as weakness, and vulnerability is such a strength, and it is such a beautiful thing.
I find that so interesting because being a marketing expert, authenticity is actually the thing that is driving sales right now with organizations, with branding.
We talked about this last week.
Yeah. Like being exactly who you are so that you can attract exactly who you want to work with is the only way to be, well, it's not the only way, but it's the most efficient and effective way to gain the type of clientele that you want, just from a marketing perspective. As it turns out, that also translates into your personal life. Like if you are exactly who you are out in the world, you will attract people who value you, who see you, who don't judge you. Like, and there's that whole, there's that TikTok viral thing that's we listen and we don't judge. And I saw a meme the other day that's like, me and my best friend have been doing that for 15 years. So, you know, like that's the point, is finding, I don't know, it's exhausting. I'm going to be like, to not be yourself. If you're tired out there in the world, it's because you're not being who you want to be. Like it's exhausting to put on a show, wear a mask, pretend like you're somebody you're not, and to get people to like you. And then funny enough, they don't even like you because it's not you.
Well, and I think you just nailed it on the head. It's not necessarily getting to rock bottom and that's pain point. It's people are so, you guys are so conditioned and programmed, you don't know who you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so ripping off those layers, taking off the masks that we put on a daily basis, whether it's a CEO title, the mom, the wife, the girlfriend, you are not defined by those titles, those hats, those masks. And that's scary.
That is scary. So, okay,
So
now
that's the hard.
I can drop my own author now because I'm really bad at that. I love people who can do authors and books and stuff. I read a ton, but I just can't, I don't know. But Eckhart Tolle, A Whole Earth, talks about this. About exactly that, like when the kids, for the empty nesters and the kids move out, if I'm not a mother, then who am I? And I experienced that hardcore when I lost my first corporate job, and I was living and breathing the company's value. Like it was, and if I wasn't the regional director for BNI, then I was worth nothing. Then who was I? And that took a while, took a year to get over, right? Like,
so my physical decline
yeah,
was within 8 months of selling my business. I had always started at 14, been a swim coach, been a swim teacher, took a brief stint to go to college to be a double engineering major, and then went back into the swim world. Sold my business and then was bedridden within 8 months because I didn't know who I was and my identity. Yeah, there was some trauma there. It was multi-layered, but the timing of that, it just shows we put on our masks. Yeah. And we hide behind. It's very comfortable to step up and show up, especially some of women, you can, turn me off after this if you would like, and if this triggers you. But I challenge you to look in the mirror. The toxic feminism right now is such a thing.
Yeah.
We can show up and be loving, amazing, powerful humans and not have to be the boss babe.
Yeah. I'm seeing a swing as well back into the divine feminine of just pulling all of that back and allowing, and for a good reason too, because we're ending up on the other side of that is the toxic masculine, or the guy who has no purpose because I filled his shoes and mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And now we've got this generation of men who are out here trying to date boss babes who don't bring anything to the table because nobody's helped them figure out what that is, what they're bringing to the table, if you will. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Do you know how nice it is? Because, I am a single mom of 4 kids full time in this moment. To be able to just be and not have to make decisions when I'm off by myself.
Yeah.
It is so freeing. It's the best feeling in the world. And it fills me back up. But also, wearing both hats is not a long-term thing. I mean, we were community. If you look back 100 years ago, we were surrounded by people. And women did motherhood, they did life, they did that together. And that is something I've really had to lean into over the past 6 months is who are my people and who do I call for support, because I am only one person.
Interesting. So when I was learning to breastfeed, because I don't know if you guys know this, you have to actually learn that. It's not a freaking primal thing that you just figure out, which was something that I learned during that process, right? Which was it has to be taught. And why do we have these classes and things like that? It's because back in the tribe days, we lived with our mothers and our grandmothers, and they showed you how to do it. And it is not an animalistic, like you just flop it out and the baby figures it out. And we have gotten so far away from living in that type of community that a lot of what being a woman is and that whole process has gone away. And thankfully, I've moved back in with my parents right now because of my life and whatnot. And our society has, get a house and be a quote unquote an adult and have a mortgage and just to fund the system. But in terms of quality of life for myself, for my children, for my parents, of being able to spend all this time with my kids and all of who's actually benefiting here more? Me by myself in my home, or all of us together in a community helping to cook dinner and do the dishes and pick the kids up from school and all of that? Like, which one feels better?
And we all might have a different feel better.
For sure.
That goes back to just the whole starting on this of the programs and societal expectations. And that's really where we have to say what works for me. Not having that fear of judgment, of being able to be like, man, this is allowing me to heal. This is allowing me to move forward. This is what's best for me and my family. And what a beautiful thing that you were in such a secure spot, or maybe we're forced to be into that space to be like, oh, this is what I needed.
Yeah. No, it's totally what I needed.
It's beautiful. It's a blessing.
It is. Thank you. Yes. And that back to that, which is community, whatever that looks like, right? For it doesn't have to be your intact biological family, because sometimes those guys are assholes and you shouldn't be in a relationship with them, and that's totally okay. And there's all these big questions about social media and the ability this has been a topic, especially with the holidays and everybody sitting around a table, that people don't have the ability to do this anymore, to talk to each other and build relationships because of social media, and how incredibly important it is that we have communities to help us with these things, whatever they are, right? Mm-hmm. In some cases, I think the most important, if you're in a good community, they are mirrors, and they show back to you what you should probably not should. I don't like to should on people, but like a mirror saying, hi, you said you wanted more toned arms, and you're not doing the thing that you said you were going to do, to hold you accountable and help you achieve that greatness that you want, whatever it is. So community is important.
And there's that fine line between being judged and being held capable. So when people show like you said you wanted this, are you showing up in that way? It's not a judgment. It's a being held capable. We hold ourselves personally accountable. But I saw something the other day. I love the mirror. And it's like, look in the mirror, don't look out the window.
Yeah.
Like, how are we showing up? And are we showing up for ourselves? And then are we showing up for others?
Why do you say being held capable, not held accountable?
Because we can hold ourselves personally accountable, but nobody else can. They can hold me capable.
Oh, okay.
It also goes back to like before. If I tell you you're going to tone your arms, you're going to do this, this, and this, I'm going to be like, okay, is this a commitment you're willing to make?
Yes.
Okay. Then you're going to come back in next week. You're going to check in with me. If you haven't done it, that's okay, but that's also on you. That's your accountability, and I'm holding the space for you to be able to do it.
I see. Okay. Got that.
I'm not going to fire you as a friend, as a client. Now, if it's 10 weeks in and you're not doing the work that you say you're going to do, we might not be aligned, but that's a choice that you made.
I've heard that in terms of releasing people from their employment, right? Like, I'm allowing you, instead of like firing somebody, the language is I'm allowing you to go find your next business spot or whatever. It's more of like pushing it back on them, saying you made these. I'm not firing you. You have fired yourself, and I'm allowing you the space to just go find your next opportunity. And so I was like, I really like that language, because it's very, again, I don't know if people are able to yet there to hear that kind of talk.
Yep. We make our choices. And the encouraging part of that is, though, even if you're like, oh, because I mean, the human nature, because that made me kind of go, no, that's completely true, is a lot of times we want to revert back to that victim state. Well, no, they had that control, but no, we really made that choice. But no, you are always doing the best that you can in any given moment. It's when we look back and we're like, man, I should have done better, and you should on yourself. No, you really did the best you could. Are you choosing to learn and grow from it? Or are you choosing to move forward?
Yeah.
You know,
that's that self-reflection piece, though. You got to be able to look at it and go, who was I, and how did I contribute to the place that I'm currently in?
Yep.
All right. So wrapping up, there is hope. And what is the one thing? How can we help people find that hope? If that we talked about that giant wound, it was a very visual for me. That giant, what did you call it? Unworthiness wound that swallows up our hope. What can our listeners do today to maybe shrink it a little bit, or at least acknowledge it, or find the hope
here's what I would, if you were going to do anything, I would take 10 minutes and write down, what do you want?
Mm-hmm.
And it can be, if this is too triggering, here's how you flip it. I had this conversation yesterday, actually, because I had a coach of mine encourage me 2 years ago, what do you want in a relationship? I was married at the time. I couldn't write down what I wanted in a relationship, so I wrote down what I didn't want. And then I flipped the script to what I do want. So if you're not like,
it's too much to hope and dream.
It's too much to hope and dream, then that's the way that you can do it.
I love that.
But then here's what I encourage you to do once you have your list. How are those things already showing up in your life?
That's good.
You know, my daughter told me the other day, she's 3. I have 4 kids, but my 3-year-old, and there's days right now that I am in survival and we're eating pizza and chicken nuggets. Mommy, you're the best pizza maker ever. I'm like, awesome, kid. Thank you. Like, I'm showing up, her tummy's full, you know, but if you can recognize how these things are actually happening in your life already, where are you receiving the love? Where are you receiving the gratitude? Even the monetary benefits. Somebody paying for your meal ahead of you in a drive-through line, that's receiving.
Yeah.
And so if you can recognize it, what you know and what you focus on grows. And if you don't, picture the purple elephant. We are very visual. Our brain actually has a higher output than a 55 kilowatt radio tower. So if you can put out there and put pen to paper on your dream life and design it, it will manifest.
I've heard that
it manifests, come to fruition. I don't usually use that word a lot, but it will come
happen
to fruition.
Yeah.
It will happen.
And I've heard that there's actually science, your little frequency scanner or whatever, there is a higher frequency with the pen to paper.
Blue ink too.
Is that what it is?
Blue ink, pen to paper. It is biblical in Malachi, not Malachi, Habakkuk. Write it down and it will happen.
There you go. Write it down. It will happen. There is so much more. If you would like to speak with Jenn, I will tag her and her business down in the show notes. And we could do this all day because this is definitely something that we just want people to live their best authentic life and feel good doing it. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being here today. Follow us on the socials. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful holiday and go live your best life.